All right, joining me now to talk about this issues is a Labour advisor and Managing Director, CEO of Exitom Consulting Limited, Adeyemi Ajayi. It's good to have you join me now.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah.
Now, I know you were following the development in Kaduna in the last couple of days, and we saw how everything heightened within days. It was, in fact, everyone was so scared of what's going to happen. It was becoming very unpredictable. But everybody also knew that these things, because when it comes to the issue of laying off staff or laying off, civil servants and workers and all of that, this is not the first time this is coming from Kaduna. But what was different about what happened this last couple of days?
Yeah. What actually happened is the governor had to follow some steps. If you check the Labour Act, Section 20 precisely, subsection 1 from A to C, you will discover that there are procedures, there are steps to take. If you're taking that step, that's redundancy, as it were. And one thing you should do is to do very good stakeholder management. Bring the stakeholders together. Tell them the reason. In fact, that section of the labor law requires that the governor should inform the labor community and tell them what he wants to do and how he's going to do it, and again negotiate redundancy package for the workers to be laid off. And again, things are very hard out there. You may be taking the right decision, maybe at the right time, but not following the right steps. So I think the step is what makes it quite different this time around.
But when you say making the right decision, maybe at the right time, but with the wrong step and all of that, right timing. A lot of people who are complaining of the timing right now, where inflation is skyrocketing, and then the different things are happening, the insecurity and so on.
Yeah, you see, when I mean right timing, maybe in quotes.
Okay.
Yeah. Now it comes out to say he spent 90% of his earnings on the labor. For him, that's the right time. But for the labor, that's the wrong time. Maybe I should put that in proper perspective. And another thing to also mention is that now if you lay off about 7,000 staff, what are you creating within your own small economy as a state? Now it tells you that people will go even more, people will go poorer. Apart from going poorer, it could lead to more security issues. We know the security issues around Kaduna, the northern part of Nigeria. So that tells you that the level of insecurity, the level of banditry and all sort of terrible vices may go up, because people will want to seek for means of survival. And again, the economy is so choked up with negative indices or indicators, as it were, and there is nothing encouraging, about this. I think what you should have done rather is a step of outplacement. And outplacement means that before you lay people off, make provisions for them to settle, well, even after they've left the job.
So there's some feeling of security of what to fall back on.
Yeah, that dimension is clear. And anybody will want to fight that. Even if I want to fight that, because ordinarily it should have taken those steps, negotiate, and also try to make provisions in terms of money for redundancy and all that, so that when people get those packages, some can start their lives and just forget about what happened and move on. But when those things do not exist, when the stakeholders management are very terrible, then it just tells you that something is wrong.
Yeah, but in fact, when it comes to what is the ideal situation of the fact that the government is supposed to call labor stakeholders, we don't see that really happening in Nigeria, whether it is the federal government at the time or state governments or whatever. Governments don't really call these stakeholders to negotiate with them ahead. Or do we have that?
Yeah, it's not something that happens often. It doesn't happen often because the government, let me say again in quotes, believes all power belong to the government. Let me use that word.
Yes.
But again, these are laws that must be followed. These are people that you must engage by that section of the labor law, section 20. You have to engage it. In fact, that section said you need to tell them ahead why you want to lay off, and the scope of the layoff in terms of the numbers, the grades of staff involved. Then the third thing is, what are your plans in terms of redundancy? Then what are you going to pay them? When are you going to pay them? All this. This is to make sure that proper steps are followed. Except the labor law changes, it's still applicable. You know, if that is applicable, then government should follow that part. Unfortunately, why they don't follow that part is, at the end of the day, they just believe that they take decisions. By the time people shout, people will go, you know, and everything will just over time fizzle out. But again, we are so lucky in this part of the world that we don't have a system where people will just wake up tomorrow, they slam you with charges, you meet yourself in the courts, and by the end of the day, you are paying more than you could have paid in terms of, you know, redundancy, negotiations and all that. Then that makes life more complicated for you as a government. So I think the right step to follow basically should be followed.
All right. Right now, they've decided to suspend the strike, and all roads lead to Abuja now for negotiation. What do you see in that regard?
What I see, again, if you notice, Malam Nasser El-Rufai said his government will not go for the negotiation because he wants power restored to his people before his government will go to that negotiation table. The Arewa Consultative Forums, they've approached him. The Progressive Governors Forum, they've approached him. I think he should shoot his sword and go for that negotiation. You see, there's something in negotiation that comes to you having a win-win situation. The win-win situation may not be favorable to both parties, but it's favorable to all. You know what I mean by that? You're compromising some things, and by that, let there be peace. Because if it escalates beyond that, there may be loss of lives, there may be loss of properties and all that. Then what would he gain by escalating it beyond what it should have been? So I think the governor or the government of Kaduna State should go to that negotiation table and reach an agreement that will be, that will be beneficial to both parties.
But what scenarios can play out if NLC goes to Abuja, because they say they'll be in Abuja to negotiate with the Minister of Labor and Employment and other stakeholders? What scenarios can play out if they go for that meeting and they can't reach an agreement? Because the point there is, the issue in Kaduna is by Kaduna State government. The person who is mediating is in Abuja. The interests may be different, even if they have a brief of what's going on.
Yeah, the scenario that could play out first is to ask the governor to stay action, you know, as it were. But he said there's no going back about that. So again, that goes to the second option or the second scenario where they say, okay, this thing has to go on. If it goes on, it will lead to NLC also coming back, you know, with another strike. You know, they said this is a warning strike. There may be another strike. And the same situation that we're in, or we were in the past 2 days, Monday and Tuesday, may happen again. Another thing is for the federal government to say, hey, okay, you know what? Maybe we should have some discussions on how to support you in order to meet the demands of your workers.
You mean federal government supporting Kaduna State government?
Kaduna State, yeah. Yeah.
But wouldn't that have far-reaching implication, because other states are looking at it? Because the point there is, it looks like there's a preferential treatment for Kaduna, because what is happening in Kaduna is also happening in so many other states.
Absolutely.
Recall that in Edo State under Adams Oshomole, when he was governor, something like this came up. There are some other states that came up with all of these things too. So on what ground will the federal government say, okay, fine, Kaduna, let us give you this to assist you? Other states will certainly look up.
That scenario is nearly impossible.
Okay.
But I have to put it on the table. I have to put it on the table. It's nearly impossible.
Because anyway, nothing is impossible in life. Anyway, let's see.
But one thing is, if that happens, it becomes a case study. It becomes a point of reference for other people. You know, and when they have small issues, they want the federal government to come in and also, you know, do some big brother, in quotes, you know, interventions. But again, it could be very dangerous. Even
it could be counterproductive.
Yeah, counterproductive. And again, in another case, where if that option plays out, who tells you that the same situation will not come up in the future in the same state? And they want to seek the same way of also, you know, asking the government to come and help us and all that. But that's why I said it's nearly impossible. I mean, I do not see that happening, but we have to put it on the table.
No, it's okay. It's a way of also looking at it from another angle or another window. Now, following up with that scenario, if we push it to the end of that scenario, a situation where they don't agree in Abuja today by 11 a.m. if the meeting holds, and then they have to return to Kaduna to continue. Recall that Nupeng was talking about, expanding the strike as a way of solidarity to Kaduna State, expanding their strike across the nation. Yeah. What implication would that have, snowballing effect nationwide?
Yeah, that will put the government under pressure to do something, because it's gone beyond Kaduna now. It's become a national issue. And when it becomes a national issue, the federal government will be required to intervene. Now, if the federal government is required to intervene, then quick decisions will have to be taken. Now, again, options of the decisions that will be taken first is to first plead with Nupeng, not to go on nationwide strike. And
but they will call the attention of government, tell the governor of Kaduna to do the needful.
That's why I said there will be pressure on the government, the federal government, to talk to Kaduna State governor to make sure that it does what is right. Let me put it that way. And what is right is what will be fair to all, both parties this time around. And I think the negotiation is what the Kaduna State government should not avoid. They should go to the table. At each point when there are disagreements, the best option is for the parties, both parties, to sit down and talk.
Shift ground.
Shift ground. You look at your worst options available, your best options available, you bring them to negotiation table. And when you bring them to negotiation table, then both of you will have a discussion. At the point of having that discussion, you both will have to compromise. You also have to look at the benefits of the compromise. And at that point, I think it will be the best options. But again, if Nupeng goes on nationwide strike, then it has escalated. And when situations escalate that way, then the higher authority will be required to step in. Then the decision will now shift from even Kaduna State now to the federal government intervening and pushing some things down, in terms of decision making. Negotiation now will start with the federal government, Nupeng, and Kaduna State government with NLC. So there are now 4 parties involved instead of 2.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Wow. All right, we have to leave it here now. Thank you so much, Adeyemi Ajayi, Managing Director, CEO, Exitum Consulting Limited.
Thank you.
Really appreciate you for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Right.